So if you've been to the Apple Store looking for Apple HomeKit devices, there's a good chance that you've seen Elgato Eve's lineup of smart home devices. This lineup includes the Eve Room, Eve Door and Window, Eve Outdoor, Eve Energy, as well as the Eve Motion. I've been going through lots of different smart home gadgets for Google Home, Amazon Alexa, and Apple Home, and I'm generally impressed with the overall lineup and quality that Elgato has come up with. However, there are one or two products that I'm not quite sure are going to be very useful in my life, which I'll share with you. And if you've been watching enough of my smart home videos, you'll know that I'm actually very fond of the Eve room sensor. If you need more information about the Eve Energy, do check out that comparison video that I've done with four other smart plugs for the Apple Home. Before we get to the individual products, I will say that Elgato's app for the iPhone is very, very nice. In fact, it's one of the best smart home apps that I've come across so far. Instead of just regurgitating the basic Apple Home requirements, Elgato's app adds in a couple more extra features, and their devices track more than just if there's a motion, they'll track how many times it has, and they'll show up in this app. So this app, I do have to give props to Elgato, thumbs up for it. So let's start with the Eve motion sensor, which detects motion up to a distance of 9 meters or 30 feet in a 120-degree field of view. The Eve motion sensor can be mounted outside since it has an IPX3 rating, but that doesn't mean it can handle torrential downpour. You're still going to need to mount it maybe under an overhang or somewhere with a bit of cover. Like all Elgato Eve products, the motion sensor is powered by alkaline batteries, which is a little annoying, but it does allow it to be quite portable. I personally haven't found much use for this sensor indoors since the field of view is way too wide. If you're looking for something to use indoors with a finer field of view, consider getting the more expensive DLink Omna, which allows you to be very specific with which area to detect motion in. For my home, the only place I could really find a use for the Eve Motion is to set it up outside near my garage so that every time I walk towards the house, lights would come on after the sun set. This is done through an Apple Home automation, so, well, if you like walking into a lit house at night, well, you'll definitely need to pick up an Eve Motion. If you need more information on the different types of automations, do check out that intro video that I've made. I will note that the sensor will not work behind a window, so you'll need to find a place to mount it in the room or area that you want to track motion in. I was really hoping that I could point it outside towards the garage so that I didn't have to mount it outside. The Eve app will track all the times the Eve motion gets triggered, which is, extra information that might be handy for some people, but I can't think of why I personally would use it. Next up, we have the Eve Outdoor Sensor. This is one of the sensors that I'm not quite sure how useful it is. The Eve Outdoor Sensor provides environmental data on temperature, humidity, and air pressure. Now, I personally do not pay a lot of attention to humidity as well as air pressure, mostly because those things don't really affect me when I go outside. Now, temperature I pay a lot of attention to because I have to take Buddy out here for walks all the time, so I need to figure out what jacket I need to wear. And it's way easier for me to look outside at my $7 thermometer than it is to load up the Eve Outdoor Sensor data on my smartphone. It's neat that I can see the temperature outside of my home from my office, but at the same time, I don't know how useful that information is. When would I use that information? The Eve Outdoor is powered by 2 AA batteries, and like the Eve Motion, has a water resistance rating of IPX3, which means it can't handle heavy rains, but you can definitely leave it outside and let it get misty, we'll say. Onto the Eve Door and Window. This is a wireless contact sensor that will tell you if something is open or closed. So put on a door, a sliding door, your pantry, and any sort of window. Now, I personally don't have much use for this type of sensor, considering that it costs $40 per sensor. You can set the door and window sensor in a couple of different ways, so you don't need to be 100% with the contact. Everything doesn't need to be lined up in order for it to work. The Eve Door and Window is powered by a half AA battery. The sensor has been used for about 5 weeks now, and the battery's still good. You can use the open-close information to trigger an Apple Home automation, and you can also use the sensor to send you notifications. So anytime your child gets into the pantry, you can get notified, which is quite handy. Onto the Eve Room sensor, which is my favorite out of the group and is the most expensive. With that being said, I'm not quite sure how useful continuous air quality monitoring is to me, because in my whirlwind of reviewing products and testing, I removed the Eve Room sensor from my last Apple Home build, and I have no data on my air quality for the last month. What surprised me the most about the Eve room when I got it was discovering how poor the air quality was in my office. Apparently, my printer was killing me slowly. The moment I turned off my printer, air quality went through the roof. Now, the Eve room sensor on top of air quality will measure temperature as well as humidity. Now, between temperature and humidity, I'm more concerned with humidity because of all the wood stuff I have in my house. I can't have it too dry or can't have it too wet, or else stuff starts cracking and it doesn't look nice anymore. So humidity to me is important, but the problem I have with Apple Home in general, and I guess it ties into the Eve room, is that I can't trigger an automation based on the sensor data, which to me would be very useful for my basement, that if the temperature gets too low, I just want to heat the basement with my portable heater. I just want that to trigger using a smart plug, but I can't do that. So hopefully in newer iterations of the Apple Home app, maybe in iOS 12, maybe we'll get that functionality, but as of right now, that's probably the standout feature that's missing the most when it comes to making these smart home sensors useful. I've got a bunch of other videos if you need more information. I've got an intro to smart home sensors, intro to smart home lights, as well as light switches. If you got questions for me, leave them in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to answer them. If this is the first time you're watching my videos, do subscribe. This is a brand new channel, so I'll be producing content left, right, and center. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.